Tom Greatrex, you are with the NIA, the CEO. Thank you so much for joining us at the Energy Landscape Conference today, September the 10th. Dying to hear from you about the latest developments of the NIA with the nuclear renaissance for the UK to meet net zero for 2030 and onwards. So could you just share with the audience, just over the next 10-15 minutes, really where you're at with obviously got new government and what you hope is going to happen and the challenges that you hope to be addressed as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had an election, a change of government, lots of new MPs. That brings with it a lot of work for an organisation that works in the energy sector to help people understand the basics of that industry and the technology and everything else. But the fundamentals haven't changed from before the election to now, which is we have a combination of events. We have geopolitical uncertainty. We have very volatile fuel and therefore electricity prices, and people have seen that Ofgem have again raised their cap on consumer prices, which has a big impact on the wider economy. We've got a nuclear fleet, which is the only way of producing secure low carbon power that is available 24/7, whatever the weather, but it's coming towards the end of its generating life. That's not a surprise. We've known that for a long time. We have one under construction and an urgent need if we're going to have energy security and decarbonisation and avoid the potential of what we saw a couple of years ago, which is the fundamentals of the economy be buffeted by volatile energy prices. We need to get new capacity built. That was true pre-July the 4th, it was true July the 5th, it's true on September the 10th, and it will be on September the 11th as well. So that's where we are. We have, at the moment, a power station being built at Hinkley, 3.2 gigawatts of new power, which will come on. That will be the biggest single low-carbon energy asset in the UK, and it will produce electricity for 60, 70, probably longer than that, years into the future, 24/7, whatever the weather. That's a really important aspect and underpinning of our future power system, but it isn't enough. We currently have just under about seven to 8 gigawatts left of our current fleet, but most of those power stations will stop generating electricity in the next few years. And even if we're able to extend their lives by a couple of years to get us towards 2030, they won't be around much beyond that, with the exception of Sizewell B and Hinkley C. So we need even to stand still, get on and build. So what we need and what we're seeing from the current government, as we have from the previous government, was an understanding that nuclear is integral to part of our energy mix. We're also seeing the continuation of the discussions, hopefully towards conclusion on a final investment decision for Sizewell C, which will be a copy of Hinkley Point C. We're seeing the continuation of the competition or the technology assessment for which small modular reactor technologies will be deployed in the UK, and importantly, where for the first sites. That's all vitally important. But again, that's not enough to get us very much beyond where we are in a world where we know that electricity demand is increasing all of the time, that we know that data centres and other new energy intensive industries need a reliable and secure ongoing supply of electricity. And increasingly, as we're seeing internationally, huge competition, not just in the UK, but across the world and across Europe, where in the Netherlands, in Czech Republic, in Poland, and increasingly across the board, we're seeing more and more plans accelerated for new nuclear capacity, because the world is grappling with the same issues of energy security, price predictability, and the challenges of decarbonisation. So that's the framework. That's the environment we're in. It's very similar to where we were a few weeks ago, and it requires now for government to continue what the previous government did, which is to set out an ambitious approach, to work at pace, to work with the industry to help to deliver, both in terms of the capacity, but also the jobs, the skills, the supply chain opportunities, both domestically and internationally, that can come from that. And we've got, fortunately in this country, a very, very strong nuclear heritage. We've got, fortunately in this country, a supply chain which has been effectively rebuilt to do Hinkley, but we've got huge opportunities where we're ahead of the rest of the world. But if we go slow or stop or pause or wait or think about it or indulge ourselves in thinking somehow 100% renewables is going to solve all of our problems, which is a fool's errand if ever there was one, then we will lose that advantage. So it's a critical point of time that we're at the moment in deployment of new capacity in a world where we're seeing there is constraints on capital. There's a lack of availability of capital. There is need across infrastructure, not just in energy, and within energy as well as nuclear, other forms of energy as well, and grid infrastructure that all needs to be built. So we need a systems approach to this. I'm hopeful and positive and optimistic that we are seeing signs that that is something which ministers acknowledge and understand. There will be battles ahead with the Treasury. There are battles ongoing with the Treasury over certain aspects of this. But really, what we need to do is to get on and do it, because the fundamentals of our economy and the ability to be able, for our society to be able to function effectively, rests on having proper, secure, reliable, dependable power for the future.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, the UK definitely has an opportunity to be part of this clean reindustrialisation, and nuclear has a major role to play in that. In fact, I would go as far as to say I don't think it's possible without nuclear. So obviously you mentioned the large nuclear plants. Moving to small modular reactors and first of a kind, I've done some interviews about the Canadians and where they're at with the GE Hitachi Darlington project being the one that's going to be completed hopefully towards the end of this decade, beginning of next. Where do you see the timeline for the UK off the back of that, and with the American regulators as well? What would you like to see in terms of any fast tracking on regulation, not to be to the detriment of any safety, but both from a financing and a regulatory point of view? What do you ideally want to see in terms of us being able to really be in the mix of those first mover countries?
Well, there are a number of steps that have to be taken before you can deploy nuclear technology in the UK, and some of those steps, they're there for a good reason. But there's no reason why you have to do one after the other, which is what we've historically done. There's a whole range of things you can do in parallel. So, for example, whilst the reactor designs are going through generic design assessment, which is about the design of that technology, there is no reason at all why, once sites have been identified, that you can't then go forward and go through the development consent order, or the process for getting local permissions. You can't. Well, there's no reason at all why you can't engage and build your supply chain to be ready to deploy that. You can't. No reason at all why you can't be building your factories for modular reactors, which will be factory built and then assembled on site. But to do all that, you need to have certainty and clarity of program, and you need to have orders. And that's the fundamental thing. That's the thing that will speed it up most. It's not actually about anything particularly clever. It's about having an order in place. Because once you've got an order in place, you've got confidence then to be able to do all of the things you need to do, and not to hedge against decisions that haven't yet been made or things that are being considered, and go slow on something because you haven't got confidence in something else. You've got to get your board to sign that off. When you've got an order, you know that you're going to do it, then you can get on and attack those different things at pace, and that's what we need to do.
So what do you think is the real key that's going to unlock that investor confidence on orders? Because that, as you said, is key.
Well, the outcome of the GBN process, which should be technology selected, sites identified, and then negotiation and contract signed. Now, if they can stick, and they broadly have done, given that there's been an election in the middle of it, broadly stick to their timelines, and then government can respond and react quickly to that, we're able to do that. What we won't be able to do is if at the end of that process, government sort of thinks about it, takes some time, considers something else, gets someone else to review it, looks again at it, all of those sorts of things which just add time, add cost, add uncertainty, at the same time as there are many other markets, not just in the rest of Europe, but around the world, that are pushing ahead and will continue to push ahead. And if we're not careful, and if we don't act with the right degree of pace and urgency, the UK will find itself slipping down that queue. So we won't have any choice but to do it later, because everyone will be busy working on other projects in other countries.
So I presume that's one of the reasons why Great British Nuclear has been born. So how do you see their role in terms of being able to accelerate the project process, the development project process?
Yeah, I mean, look, the concept of Great British Nuclear is something which came from discussions between the industry and the previous government about how do we attack some and deal with some of the barriers there are to development and development at pace. And it took a while to get established, but it's now up and running. It's doing the first of its tasks. The most important thing is that it continues. And actually, the incoming government haven't decided to stop it, haven't decided to say, well, we're setting up something else called Great British Energy and we'll wait until we've decided what we're going to do about that. It's enabled GBN to carry on doing its work. And whichever framework or bureaucracies that exist in the medium term, the work of Great British Nuclear is absolutely integral to keeping things on track, to coordinating and pursuing a programme, because without a programmatic approach, we would repeat the mistakes of the past, which is we take far too long and it costs far too much to do what we need to do. And we haven't got that time. And frankly, at the moment, the country hasn't got that money to waste either.
That comes to my final point, which is controversially, we do probably need some form of sovereign guarantee for these first-of-a-kind cost overruns, which are inevitable. The Americans under Ernie Monize's stewardship as well have addressed different ways to deal with cost overruns. What do you personally think our Treasury needs to be thinking about to de-risk it for institutional investors and other private investors that are looking at this, that really want to be involved but are just too scared to do so?
Well, the most important thing is that you don't just have one. If you have one, then you don't improve, and you don't improve again and again. You don't get the benefits of the fleet effect that you see in other infrastructure and other technologies. You repeat the mistakes that we have in the one build that we've seen in not just in nuclear, but in other infrastructure and other energy infrastructure as well. So look, from a Treasury point of view, having an order that has multiple units is the best way of guaranteeing that the investability is there, because you will improve from the first of a kind to the second to the third to the fourth until you've effectively got a production line. And that's the strongest message that I want to get across, and the most important thing in terms of financing and supporting. So there may well be, and there probably will be, quite significant state involvement and support to start with, but that can taper off as the appetite, the interest is there, but the appetite for real investment, institutional investment, comes in as you see your ability to deliver and to deliver consistently through the benefits of fleet effect, which are as true of nuclear power stations as they are of offshore wind or of anything else.
Okay, well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Tom, for giving us that insight. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the conference, and best of luck with meeting the 2030 target going forward.
Thank you.